Hello, Michael Mann, BikeSocial. Hope you're well. Welcome back to the channel. So for more than a decade, Triumph has been pursuing the goal of creating an entry-level bike to get more people in at the sort of bottom rung to work their way up the Triumph ladder. And now they've succeeded with not one, but two bikes using the same platform. So it's a 400cc single-cylinder liquid-cooled engine. And they've made two bikes, one of which is called the Speed 400 and the other is the Scrambler 400X. In this video, we're going to look a little bit deeper into what these bikes are and also talk to Stuart Wood, who's the chief engineer for Triumph. So these two bikes are the fruits of the partnership that Triumph announced back in 2017 with a massive Indian firm called Bajaj. They're one of the top 10 firms in India. And when I mentioned earlier about a decade ago, of course, it was 2013 when Triumph officially announced the termination of their project to bring, again, not one but two 250cc bikes into the market. Fast forward to today, and now we've got these production-ready bikes that have been unveiled. Although, while they'll be on sale in India around August time, we won't see them here in the UK until much, much later on, probably around December by the time we get to ride them. Also, that's the time where we get to find out about the price. They both make 40 horsepower, 8,000 RPM and 27.7 pound-foot of torque, about 6,500. So in terms of their performance, they're identical, but as well as looking very different. But let's go and find out how they differ and a little bit more about them by talking to Stuart Wood, who's the chief engineer for Triumph. And here we are. Stuart, thank you so much for inviting us down.
Good to see you.
And letting us see your babies.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Well, a decade in the making, really, it's fair to say, isn't it?
Well, these particular bikes, obviously the actual design process is about 3.5 years, but there's time building the relationship and deciding with Bajaj what we wanted to build. But as you say, we've been looking at smaller capacity bikes for a long time, and this is the result.
With a view to clearly getting younger, newer, fresher people into motorcycling, is it fair
Absolutely.
to say?
Yeah, absolutely. There are other markets that we want to grow, and these are large aspirational bikes in those markets. But for UK, Europe, North America, these will really suit people who have just come into motorcycling, who want to get a bike that's A2 compliant, but has got all the quality and all the values, all the attributes that we offer. So you've got your agility, you've got your responsiveness, you've got character, real character from the bikes, and really high quality finish.
You mentioned quality, and certainly that's plain to see standing right here, but even in the photographs and the video content we've seen already, these are real high specification machines, aren't they? Can we just talk about sort of the engine first of all? Well, I'd like to talk about all the components with and keep it fairly succinct, but if we can start with the engines, it's a single cylinder, isn't it?
Absolutely. So we've got a 398cc 4-valve engine, fully balanced. So you've got 100% vertical and longitudinal balance. So it's a very smooth engine, but we've tuned the inertia so that you really feel the fire impulses. So a single is absolutely ideal at 400cc because you're still feeling the character that you get from the engine. You haven't sanitized it with multiple cylinders. So absolutely ideal and our absolute choice.
Tell me a bit more about the sort of the other components within that sort of engine, so the exhaust run and the gearbox as well. These are all new components, aren't they? They've been designed and made by you guys?
Yeah, well we always design bikes as a whole. You cannot design an engine in isolation and then fit it in a bike. That's just wrong. So even things like the bore and stroke, we want to set an engine height that suits the style and layout and the structure of the frame. Everything's integrated at all times. So all of the layout work, all of the targeting is 100% from the start here at Triumph.
Yes.
Our collaboration has allowed us to bring in knowledge of very high volume production and production techniques, but also the elements of layout that would facilitate that. So we've worked really closely together all the way through to ensure that we get what we want from a bike that's manufactured at very high volume.
So your partner is Bajaj, aren't they?
Yes.
Indian-based. What sort of percentage of the overall design and production process have they been involved, or is it you involved with them, vice versa, 50-50? How does
That's a difficult one to judge.
You've got expertise in different areas,
we got expertise in different areas, but we're all working on the same parts at the same time, because it is collaborative. All design is collaborative. You can't work in isolation. You've got this aspiration of the finished bike, and everyone's working towards that goal. So if there's manufacturing expertise input coming to us from Bajaj, or our expertise on handling, response and character, or quality of finish, it's one team.
And ultimately, you've made two bikes that look very, very similar in their sort of their DNA line, don't you, with Speed and with Scrambler. Yeah. What are the differences between the two, other than physical, height, I can see? Okay,
well, the suspension travel is what drives that. So you've got longer suspension travel, 140 at the front on the Speed, 130 at the rear, and then 150mm both ends on the Scrambler. You've got the 19-inch front wheel on the Scrambler instead of the 17. So the Speed is set up as your classic classically inspired sports roadster. Okay, lovely setup. With the Scrambler X, what we've done is lengthened the wheelbase a little bit. You've got the longer travel. The suspension is very slightly softer, but with longer travel, because then that soaks up the bumps and the off-road better. But they are then set up with their ergonomics differently as well, completely differently, down to the fact that you've got wider steel bars on the Scrambler, and you've got tapered aluminium bars that are narrower on the Speed. Okay, slightly more leg room because you've got the slightly higher seat height on the Scrambler, but again works very well ergonomically standing up off-road. So they're very different, and they're set up completely different, the suspension and the geometries to suit the tyres and the use of the bike.
And by having them, despite they're being learner legal bikes, it makes that easy, I guess, to then pitch them to actually a wider audience, doesn't it? Not necessarily a learner.
Yeah. No, these are bikes of choice. They're absolutely bikes of choice. We haven't shrunk the whole bike to make them smaller capacity. They're a 400cc bike that will fit all of us. Yeah, they're lovely bikes, and they're bikes of choice for anyone. Yeah, depending on how you're riding, where you're riding, the speeds you want to ride, or the fact you might want a very, very good value bike to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant, thank you, Stuart. Now, in terms of availability in the UK and price, I know you're not going to tell me, but when are we going to learn these sort of key and critical parts of the specification?
Okay, that's going to be end of this year. Right. So I guess December time we'll all get out riding. You get a chance to ride both bikes. We'll be releasing the pricing and availability then.
Oh, right, okay. So they're going to be the 2024 models, and we'll know a bit more about it then. Brilliant. Anything else you want to tell me, particularly around fuel tank size, seat height, accessories? I know it wouldn't be a Triumph without lots and lots of accessories.
Yeah. Fuel tanks, both 13 litres, which gives a really good range. We're waiting for final homologation figures, but you're around 80 miles per gallon.
Right.
Okay, so they're going to be really useful range as well, whilst keeping the weight low. We have 170 kilograms fully wet for the Speed 400, which again is light, agile, 790mm seat height. Slightly heavier with the Scrambler X because of all the extra, there's spec on this bike, as well as the fact that it's taller. So you've got taller suspension, which in itself means you have a taller, slightly bigger centre stand, hand guards, as I said, the steel handlebars, steel footrests as well, again for better durability, aluminium on the Speed, and even this split seat. So there's a lot of difference, a lot of spec difference between the two, and again, specifically for each bike.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. Can't wait to ride them.
It's going to be good.
Cheers.
And don't they look smart? I mean, I can confirm, because I sat on them, that despite being a 400cc single, they're not actually that small. Physically, certainly with the Scrambler, it's much bigger. Still very accessible, mind. It's quite narrow at the waist. You still, in terms of its leg over stance, it's still very accessible. Again, we'll find out more when we ride them. And while they're not going to win at the sort of the power and performance end of a top trumps comparison, they are very well put together, very well built. So while they are top notch in terms of their finish and aesthetics, are they going to be enough to kind of entice a younger generation into Triumph? Only time will tell. So in terms of natural competitors, well, Triumph named European rivals, certainly with BMW. They actually named Royal Enfield as well. So I guess we could look at the 310R, 310GS from BM, or the likes of the Himalayan, the Meteor, the Hunter from Royal Enfield. But let's not forget also about the KTM range, the 390 Duke, 390 Adventure. And also, while Triumph won't tell us about the price just yet, if you take into consideration those rivals, plus what else Triumph offer, and actually they did specify that they would be competitive with European rivals, I think is what they exactly said. You can start to kind of figure out a price, and we reckon it's going to be about the 5354 mark for the Speed 400, maybe another £300 or £400 on top of that for the Scrambler 400X. Like I said, only time will tell. Let us know what you think about these bikes in the comment section below. You can ask any questions, give us a comment or a review or a thought, and we could always ask Triumph if we don't know the answer. Thanks so much for being with us. Let me just finish by saying that if you aren't yet a BikeSocial member, do go and join up, bikesocial.co.uk/join. £6 a month or £60 a year, and you get access to hundreds of brilliant deals, competitions, exclusives. Of course, if you do insure your bike directly with Bennetts, then membership is yours for free. See you next time.